Okay, so on the mid-chapter 7 exam review, first of all, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look right here. Today's the 9th. You don't come to school tomorrow.
Time change on Saturday.
Change your clock.
Change your clocks.
We don't come to school Monday. Okay, Tuesday and Wednesday we will go through the review. The expectation is you're coming to school Tuesday with it done. Y'all with me? Yes, it needs to be done when you come to school Tuesday. You're not looking at it for the first time on Tuesday, so that we can take questions, check answers, practice. Wednesday, continue. Thursday, test. Friday the 17th, second attempt on anything you didn't finish or got wrong, so that you get most credit back, okay? All right, on the review, 1 through 7, I believe. 1 through 7 is simplifying, which I find to be the harder types of questions because you don't know when you're done. I will tell you right now that on 1 through 7, you will not have any fractions when you're done. Like your final, oh, I'm done, there should be no fractions at all, okay? And in fact, one of them comes down to just a number. Like no trig at all. Stuff cancels. It comes down to just a number. So keep that in mind. Number 5, though. I want to look at 5. Look at number 5 right here. You have recognize what you've got. This is a binomial times a binomial. And this, tan and secant, are fractions. I would not try to multiply the binomial and the binomial when one of them is full of fractions. I would get the one that's full of fractions to a single fraction instead of 2 terms, just 1 term, and then I would multiply. So I left the first part alone. And then I came over here and looked at this. Now, you remember the technique. If I have a fraction next to something that's not a fraction, I write it in lines so that I remember, where my actual fraction is. That's a technique to use so you don't mess up with when you've got something not a fraction next to something that is a fraction. All right, and then secant is 1 over cosine. So the nice thing about this problem is these already have common denominators. So there was no need for this plus sign separating 2 fractions. I could just write it as a single fraction. So this is sine x minus 1 times sine x plus 1 all over cosine x, right? And then now I have something times something. There is a fraction here, so that cosine x is just going to multiply straight across to a 1 and just become the denominator now with this really big fraction, right? Now looking across the top, look right here. You've got sine x minus 1 times sine x plus 1. It's hard to see when it's in trig form. So change that. I'm going to draw a little arrow to say that's the equivalent of y minus 1 times y plus 1. Right? Remember what that's called? It's a difference of squares. It's when they almost are identical, but there's one small difference, and it's that sign in the middle, which means when you multiply this out, the middle term disappears. If you multiply this out, first, outer, inner, last, you're going to end up with y squared plus y minus 1 in the middle those cancel, and you end up with y squared minus 1. Now that's a lot easier to multiply out than to come over here and do that with sine x minus 1 times sine x plus 1. So anytime that you can take something and just relate it back to that single letter, do it so you can see the algebra that's embedded within it. So I'm going to replace this across the top with sine squared minus 1. Does everyone see where that came from? Of course, it's all over. I'll let the x out. Sine squared x minus 1. And it's all over cosine x. Everybody with me so far? Because here's where the magic trick is. This next line. Of course, there's not enough room. I've run out of room. I don't know how I fit it on my paper on there, but. So that I don't lose y'all, I'm just going to wipe this out and move it down. Alright. Sine squared minus 1 should look familiar, right? Go to your formula sheet. On your formula sheet, we have sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, right? Alright, so if I've got sine squared minus 1, that means rearrange this, move the sine squared over. It didn't happen on this one. Why didn't mine do it? Did yours do it? The negative's not coming out. What's different? Oh, no, I'm just not done. Here we go. All right, so cosine squared equals, if I subtract this over, I get this, right? Does everybody agree? I just need to keep going. Do y'all agree how I got that? Okay, what's the problem with this compared to what I have? They're totally different signs, right? Let me write it side by side so you can see. So what I actually have, I have sine squared minus 1, but this is 1 minus sine squared. So double check the sign. It's my watch. Sorry. Double check the signs. The 1 is positive here. It's negative here. The sign is negative here. The sign is positive here. So what can I do to fix this? Now, we don't have an equation. If this said like equals something, then you would be right. We don't have an equation, we have just an expression. So anything you do, so instead of multiplying by, just pull a negative out. So watch. If I take this and I pull a negative 1, I'm going to rearrange it. I'm going to swap. Do y'all see that? Do you see what I did there? Cupcake. I've not done anything yet. I just swapped them. Because this bothered me that they weren't the same word. You with me? Alright, now I'm going to pull a negative 1 to the front. That would become positive. That would become negative. Does it match now? See that? You can do that. You can manipulate. You can pull a negative just to the front. It'll change the sign of everything. And now they match. Now, granted, that negative is still here. So this sine squared minus 1, my work is over there. I can rewrite that as negative 1 minus sine squared. What is 1 minus sine squared? This is cosine squared. So that's negative cosine squared, still over cosine. And what happens? This one takes 1 away, so we end up with negative cosine x. Which is exactly why I wanted to work that one, because you got the multiplying difference of squares. Then you've also got this tricky little, I'm going to pull a negative to the front. This doesn't happen a lot because doesn't come up a lot, so I wanted to make sure and go over it.
Why wouldn't you just, for the formula, why wouldn't you just flip the one when it comes on and then switch the signs instead of the opposite sides? I feel like that'd be a lot easier. Like you could just subtract one to the sign, so it puts cosine squared, and then subtract cosine squared, and then they switch sides.
You actually can. You can do that because when you do that, let me change colors. I'll go to purple. I'll just do this. I'll say like 4. Okay. So coming back over here, if you subtract 1 to the left, if you subtract cosine squared to the right, you can do that, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of people don't see that technique, so, which, let's be honest, probably a lot of people don't see the pulling a negative to the front either. But yes, either one works, so that's fine. Just make sure if you do cup gain this, watch your signs, because if you move that cosine squared to the right, it would become negative. So just watch for that. But yes, that would work. So, the expectation over the weekend, you only have 25 review problems. We have 6 minutes left. I'm going to post the 7-3 homework solutions right now. If you'll get your 7-3 homework out. If you have any questions, look at it. I'll just, I'll post it to Google Classroom because it's 3 pages, so I can't like just project it to the board all at one time. So you'll check your 7-3 homework. If you have any questions, ask me before we leave. When you come to class on Tuesday, you need to have fully attempted the review so that you can have circled the ones that you're going to be like, Ms. Holcombe, I tried number 6 and I can't get it. And then that way Tuesday could be really productive, and then Wednesday will just be last minute questions. Thursday will be the test. All right, I'm going to post the answers to 7-3 homework.